Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our chat with the Macker. And Jo has graced us with her presence tonight, and we're very pleased that she's taken time out of her very busy schedule to be with us. Jo, would you like to begin by reading a poem from your new book, The Department of Stuff and Things?
Hello, welcome everybody. I would indeed. So I'm going to read the first poem from the book, which is called Genesis. In the beginning, when insert deity here created the heavens and the earth was a formless void, and things and stuff covered the face of the deep, while a wind from deity swept over the face of the waters. Then deity of choice said, "Let there be stuff and things." And there was stuff and things. And imposed deity saw that the stuff and the things were good, and bearded skyman separated the things from the stuff. And thee/our father called things things, and the stuff the stuff. And there was more than food and shelter for sale, and there was opening and closing in the shop on the first day. And salesmen on a mission from the Holy Ghost said, "Let there be departments in the midst of the shop, and let them separate the stuff from the things." So, construction companies owned by the salesmen made malls from the things and the stuff. And the shops were under the food hall with the roof above. And it was so. Marketing called the shops superstores, and there was opening and closing on the second day. And stakeholders said, "Let the stuff and the things be gathered together in one place, a fluorescent sensory hellhole." And the department of stuff and things did appear, and it was so.
That was brilliant. I haven't bought your book yet, so that was a first for me. But it's just very, very effective, and you're very energetic with your poetry. So thank you for that. What was your inspiration for the poem?
So there's kind of like, so there's Genesis and Revelations bookend in the kind of the collection. And so I'd had this title, The Department of Stuff and Things, going round and round and round in my head for a long time before I actually wrote anything. And I'd gone on a writing retreat down at Arvon. And for the first time, I had been able to go, and I didn't have funding or any caveats. Like, I didn't have to do anything there. I didn't have to make anything after it. You know, I wasn't under any kind of pressure. I just went to go and play. And so when I was seeing the tutors that were there, I just had a blather with them about some of the ideas that were going round and round in my head. And I had said, "Look, I've got this title, but I don't know what to do with it." And when I said it, the guy, it was Bill Herbert, he just burst out laughing. And then we kind of started talking through, well, what is it, And so for me, it was the gates to heaven, the gates to hell, the universe, a department store, and then putting it in those kind of, having those
Mhm.
categories like fashion and clothing and the food hall and the roof. That gave me a framework that I could really
Mhm.
have fun and play in. Um, and so that was the kind of the idea about it. But you know, from the beginning, I kind of had this idea that I was going to steal some religious type language and have this
Mhm.
sort of proclamations of doom. I used to work in marketing, which is probably where the idea, and I absolutely hate it. So this is probably like my anti-marketing collection.
Well, actually, that was the bit that I started to having to hold back the laughter that marketing were coming into this story. So now that you've explained that you had a job in marketing, it definitely makes a lot of sense. So, thinking about inspiration generally, are you a people watcher?
Oh yes, I mean, what poet isn't? Um, you know, there are lots of kind of human ballets going on around you, and I think sometimes, you know, we're so stuck in our phones or what, you know, the place that we're going to next. And I just like going to places and hanging around and spying on people. And I've got some great poems out of the situations that I've seen as well. Um, there was one quite a while ago where there was this older couple and they sat holding hands. They were playing a
Oh,
board game in the cafe and they sat holding hands the whole time. And I just
that's
thought, oh my God, that's like life goals. Do you know what I mean? If you had a partner, they were like, you know, and they must have been in their like 70s, 80s, and they were sitting holding hands, just quite happy playing board games. And I was like, yes, that's it. That's the whole point of life. But there's been, you know, there's been tons. So if you ever see me lurking around in a cafe, with a notebook and a pen, you better
very like
watch because
this.
I'll be taking down whatever you're saying.
So, thinking about your writing as a complete thing, have you always written? Have you always written poetry? Um, Tell us about your journey as a writer and as a poet.
Goodness. So it's a bit odd, kind of like me. No. So I was never into poetry. I don't remember doing poetry at school. I was a bit wild at school, so I don't really remember doing a lot of anything. A lot of anything at school. I was kind of more interested in hey, and I carry on. So I went back to study in later life, and I was working in marketing and I was miserable. Like I'd moved back up from Glasgow, my partner had passed away, so I was going through a quite a transitional period in my life anyway. I was kind of almost clocking 40 and I was like, this is pish, I don't want to be doing this. And you know, I was working in the arts, and Julia Cameron talks about shadow artists and people that kind of hang around the periphery of creative things, but
Mm.
not doing any of the creative things themselves. And somebody gave me that book, and it just opened up a whole load of ideas and possibilities for me. And I was like, wait a minute, I want to be writing the plays that are on the stage. I don't want to be marketing them. So I jacked in my job and went back to uni to do a master's because everybody that wants to be a writer has to have a master's degree, you know, which is
Mm.
also bollocks. You don't, you just need to write to be a writer.
Yes, yeah.
Um, but I was, you know, I was like, "Oh," you know, I come from a working class background. I've got the most evil, vicious inner saboteur in my head, you know, and I have to kind of like, you know, counteract that on a daily basis. So I'd convinced myself I need a master's degree, but I didn't go there to write poetry. I went to be Ursula Le Guin, Ray Bradbury, Philip K. Dick, Terry Pratchett, you know, all these kind of writers that I admired. And I wanted to write sci-fi. And I ended up being a Doric performance poet instead. Of course I did. And it was kind of like my tutor. She introduced me to Scots language writers. So Sheena Blackhall, Bill Herbert, who didn't write exclusively in Dundonian, but he's got some cracking poems. Tom Leonard from Glasgow, Leslie Benzie, Billy Letford. I was just completely bowled over that you were allowed to do that.
Yes.
You know, years before I had been at college, And I remember wanting to do like a dot, we had to write a column, and Robbie Shepherd's column was still a thing at the time. And I had to fight with the establishment to allow them to get me to write for this, assignment in Doric. And it went right up to the head teaching of the college. And the only reason they allowed it was because the teacher, Jane Lilly, she was a fluent Doric speaker, so they allowed it. And so I never knew that you were allowed to write and create and do stuff. I mean, I had seen things like, the flying pigs, and um, they did a BBC show called Desperate Fishwives as well, or the student show. Like Doric only seemed to be permissible if you were kind of taking the Mickey out of yourself, or in comedy. Like those were the only two acceptable kind of forms. I had never come across, apart from, my own people speaking it, I'd never come across like actual creative work in Doric. So that was just a revelation to me, and it just opened up my brain, and it came pouring out of me like a tap, and it hasn't stopped yet, which I'm very
which
grateful
is
for.
great. Yes. Great for us as well.
Or
Um,
maybe nay.
do you have a poem which has been inspired by a true event in your life that you could read for us?
I do. Well, I've got tons, but I wanted to pick this one out of the department and stuff and things. So I started writing about disgusting things. Like I like turning things around in their head. So I've got a poem about periods. I've got, there was a poem that mentions snorters. And this one is phlegm. And so I've got asthma. I'm not too bothered with it now, but when I was younger, I was in and out and back and forth to hospital with it, trying to get it under control. I was also a smoker then, so that's probably had quite a lot to do with it. But yeah, and just being like something that's maybe viewed as something bad and disgusting, I wanted to try and make it something that I was grateful for and something beautiful. Like I always like want to see the good in things, not to the point of toxic positivity, but just to shift your perspective and see things in a different way. So this is my ode to phlegm. I need to get it up. Where are we? What page is it on? 28. Here we go. So this poem is called I Love You When You Loosen Your Grip. You accordion up and down my gullet, making music until part of you breaks. You hawk up onto my tongue and I spit, praying, because brown is blood and bad, infected. I love you on the outside when you're green. I take 2 puffs as directed. The giant birds in my lungs who steal my air deflate instead of expand. It has never felt so beautiful, a full, deep breath.
Wow. Thank you for that. So you took a personal experience and you've been able to write about it. Do you have any advice for aspiring writers about the using their own experiences in a creative way like you are able to do?
Um, yeah, I mean, it's that kind of old piece of advice, write what you know.
Mm.
Like one of the best pieces of advice that I got was from a tutor when I was at uni, Lindsay McGregor, who's also a great poet. And she had said to me, I had my first commission while I was at university, and they were like filming around nature, and like I didn't understand nature poetry, like I didn't get it because I was never encouraged to be interested in those kind of things coming from a working class background. Like I didn't feel like it was my world, and so I used to get really annoyed by nature poetry because I was like, oh, another fucking poem about birds. Like I didn't get it. And so when I was kind of commissioned to write this, it was like about nature and the fish house at Peterhead, and they were filming up at the kind of Chuch end of the D, and I was getting in my own head. And so I was trying to write a poem like a middle class wifey that has time to go and, view herons and whatever, you know what I mean? They just lived a completely different life to me because I thought that that's what they wanted. And so then my tutor said to me straight away, "Why are you trying to write somebody else's poem?" And I was
Mm.
like, "What?" And she says, somebody could write a poem about that chair over there, but nobody will write your poem about that chair.
Mm.
And that really struck a chord with me. I was like, okay, I get it. Like, stop trying to be something else. Stop trying to write what's expected of you. Stop trying to write what, like, even back then, I thought there was some big secret to poetry that I wasn't getting. And that's not true. You can go and learn techniques and things like that. But there was a lot of it where I was like, I don't understand that, you know. And I met, I'm sure it was Caroline Bird. I don't want to quote her in case it wasn't, but I'm sure it was her. And she said that she took it was the Nat 5 exam or something for her own poem and got it
Mm.
wrong. I know I think it was her, but maybe it was another poet. I can't remember. But I just remember them saying they took what the English or the academic people or whatever were saying. This is what it means, and it was our own poem, and they got it wrong. So to me, that's just another example of, yeah, there's advice, yeah, but I never want to be like following fixed rules or and I kind of try and give that advice to other people as well. Just do your own thing, and then eventually that comes when you get out of your own way. When I did that with that poem, I ended up writing, like, I don't know if it's one of my best poems, but it's the one that's probably had the most like feedback, like really positive from people, and it does sound like me,
Mm.
but it's written like, it's not written like a middle class wifey, which I'm nae. And I don't mean that to be offensive to middle class wifeys, because I know lots of middle class wifeys who are lovely and I learn hunters from them. But yeah, just be yourself and allow, the poems are already there. The writing is already there. It's in us before we start. What we need to do is stop listening to this inner saboteur and just allow yourself to write your poems or your stories or whatever it is that you're writing.
That sounds excellent advice. And I remember one of my English teachers saying to me and the class, sometimes a dolphin's just a dolphin. It
Mhm.
doesn't have to have some hidden meaning.
Yes.
Just be sensible about how you're interpreting things.
Hmm.
You're you're known to us in the Fed for your use of Doric in your writing. Why is that important to you compared with the work that you do in standard English?
Oh, God, that's a big question.
Mm.
I think one, because it's part of my heritage, and because when I did discover that you were allowed, not only were you allowed, but there were individuals who were encouraging you to do that, it was such a revelation to me. And it just made me wonder how many other kids or young people that have wanted to create work in their own tongue, but were kind of socialized into believing that that was wrong, or they were thick, or you shouldn't, like, I mean, I'm old enough where I got whacked across the knuckles with a ruler for saying fit to a teacher, and it was really, but then obviously at home, you kind of you speak how you want. Well, nae in my house, because half my family are Chuchters and the other half are Toonsers. So my mum would be like, "It's not fit, it's what," and she's nae posh. She's nae posh. And the other half, my grandma, my dad's mum, would be like, "But on your sheer and get to that school, you're going to be late." She was just like proper. And she was also a Gaelic speaker as well. She was from Strasbourg, and it's always made me really sad that I didn't learn any Scottish Gaelic off her. But yeah, so
Well, could you perhaps read us something that might epitomize your love of Doric then.
Yes. And it also celebrates like working class stuff as well, which is why I picked this poem. So for the OG Doric queen, Sheena Blackhall, who is hilarious and very generous with her time and their advice as well. But I love this poem. There's loads of hers I could have picked, but I just really like this one because it says a lot without saying a lot. And it's the Checkout Quine's Lament. Taddy's neeps and ingen, Poothar for the wash, Willie's needin' new sheen, grip, skite, flash. Sweeties, ale, some flour, a tinny wi' a bash, I'm working like a robot, grip, skite, flash. Softies, glaces, bacon, ointment for a rash, my hoose is like a midden, grip, skite, flash. Neely jimmies, gansy, check, cared or cash, my doup is dottled sittin', grip, skite, flash. Athens in a hurry, folk in sick a hash, customers anonymous, grip, skite, flash. A trolley like Ben Nevis, mechty fit a fash, I'm scunnert and I'm foonert, grip, skite, flash. Noo my shift is ending, beans and orange squash, hame to dee the housework, up, oot, dash.
I love the rhythm of that one
Mm-hmm.
and that repetition. It just works so well there.
Yeah,
It gives the
so clever. And I
uh,
mean, Sheena's been writing for years. You know, Sheena was doing all this before it was cool and before it had a revival. And I also, in my opinion, very ignored by the literary community. But I mean, she's got an incredible body of work, and the stuff that she does for Elphinstone as well. She just, I think it's like 50 odd pamphlets she's written now, plus all her translations. And yeah,
Mhm.
it's an incredible body of work. So I all hail
Thanks.
to Sheena.
Thanks for bringing it to the table. Do what themes are most frequent for you at the moment? What do you find yourself thinking and writing about?
So at the moment, I'm kind of looking at quite a lot of ekphrastic. Here's me being a
Mm.
ooh poetry fancy. But I really love like what you feed yourself is just as important as what you put out. And because I've just finished a collection, you know, you kind of need to fill yourself back up with stuff. And so I kind of draw on music and art, and you know, I love going out dancing and um, you know, reading other people's poems and going to see plays and yada yada yada. You know, you need to fill your artist back up if you've kind of drained your artist for months and months and months putting out poetry. So I'm really interested in that kind of inspiration and seeing what comes out. And I was involved in a project over Christmas and New Year. If you're in Aberdeen, you can come to the Bonaccord Baths, which is an old Art Deco swimming pool, and we're having a wee sharing of a pamphlet. And so there's quite a few other writers from the Northeast: Fiona Robertson, May Diane Sangu, Shane Strachan, and Judith Taylor. And we're going to do a little launch of this pamphlet that we made responding to the artwork collection at Grampian Hospital's Art Trust. So they have a collection of over 4,500 artworks, which is insane. And from Murray to Stonehaven, it covers all the hospitals and ARI and things. So I was really lucky enough to delve into that collection, and I found loads of great artwork. And kind of trying to focus on female and non-binary and trans artists, just because men get enough menchies. So that's kind of where I'm at just now. I'm really interested in all of that and feeding my inner artist and filling them back up.
Would you be able to read us something that was
I would.
inspired by art? Just
I would.
thank you.
So I'm also doing a workshop with the Fed on the 11th of June, at GOMA, so Glasgow Museum of Modern Art, and it will be an ekphrastic. So I'll be using some of the images from the GAT collection and the pamphlet that we made, and we'll also have a wee wander around GOMA and learn how to kind of find inspiration in the artwork and stuff as well. Um,
That
I'm
sounds
sure
amazing.
I'm sure the details will be in the newsletter and things when it comes out.
Yes, definitely something I hope people can manage along to. So, would you like to read something to us?
Yes. So this poem is in Doric, and the painting is by Anna Boggin, and the title of the painting is Jumble Jumble Granny Handbag, which I thought is the greatest title for a painting I've ever heard. A lot of them are quite arty, and you've got like Fulu number 6 and Fulu number 2, and but I just thought Rumble Jumble Granny Handbag was amazing. So that's inspired by this, which it was a mishmash of things. And it's called Rummel Jummel Grunny Handbag. Mecht seem like a rummel under the jummel jummel. Grunny's handbag huds hunners. Unner a pack of hunkies for dichtin snotters or melted cappies. Eens fit when I read up your neb. Unner pandraps or humbugs for lichtin a greetin coupin. Unner needle and threed in a wee suppy oos. Unner a loaded pencil case and jotter. Unner an Allen key. A spoon for your tea. 'Cause you canna steer a cuppy wi' a stick. Unner sharp een-liners for cutting a bigsy vrach doon a peg or twa. Unner Haymarket stovies and the world's finest pot of broth. Unner bongella and plasters. Unner a toorie and hummel doddies. Unner a side pooch, a secrets. Or imaginations rin feel. Mibby's further doon, there's a zoo wi' a monkey and a tiger and a robot wearing sheen. A fitba pitch and a swimming spot and a massive tool for drying off. A whigmaleery, a gist in cases, full of surprises. Stop it, like her depth, o' care, thought, love.
That was absolutely wonderful because, I mean, there's no doubt that Granny's handbags are like the TARDIS. It brought back so many memories of my mum bringing something out that just happened to be in her handbag. So thank you for that. Thinking about the launch of the book, have you enjoyed that process and what were the best and worst bits so far?
Oh, so finishing. I'm a total magpie, so like I get all excited and animated when I've got a new idea and I'm like, no, new things. And then kind of like halfway through, like ideas isn't my problem. I've got hundreds ideas that I will never in 20 lifetimes finish. My struggle is the discipline to sit down and then finish that idea to fruition. So I struggle with that anyway because I get bored quite easily and I think, right, done. I want to do something new. But you kind of do that in a midlog collection. You actually have to finish it. So my publisher was very patient and tolerant with me, and I was like, look, can I get a bit more time? Can I get back a bit more time? Coupled with that, like, I'm not doing this full time because nobody makes money in poetry. Don't get into poetry if you want to make money because there's none. You end up spending more than you make. But it's the love of it. I never got into to make money or be famous or any of that stuff. I mean, it's nice. Don't get me wrong. When you get recognition, you get stuff published. That's amazing. But I would still do it, even if I never got another thing published again. I would still do it. It's become a need, and it came to me in a really difficult time in my life, and it's become like part of my kind of like mental health practice. I do morning pages every morning, and it's a way of just getting all the nonsense out my head onto the page, and then I can go and do whatever the next right thing is for me. Um, but yeah, I find that really difficult, the kind of finalising. But Linda was very, very patient with me and gave me a little bit of extra time because I had stuff going on as well. So I'm like trying to do it in between work and life, be life in. And yeah, so I kind of missed my first deadline. And I said to her, can you give me a little bit more time? She was like, yeah. So I was very glad she didn't sack me and say, no, you're a terrible person. I'm never going to have any dealings with you again. She was very supportive. So I think probably that's the bit that I didn't like, the kind of that last sort of hurdle. But I always love it when it's shiny and new and exciting. And I love a blank notebook. Like a lot of people get scared of it. I don't. It's the last few pages that I'm like, oh, I've got to finish this bloody notebook, and it's maybe like the last few pages in it. That's the bit that scares me because it's coming to that. When you finish something, once you put it out into the world, you've got no control over how people receive it or perceive it, or that's done. And so I think there's a little bit of that as well, as like, what if nobody likes it? What if everybody hates it? Um, you know, and I always go through this phase of hating everything that I've written for a little while, and then I go back to it. I think sometimes, because if you're working on something for that length of time, you know it like inside out. And for me, like being a magpie, I get quite bored with things easily, so I'm just like, meh, next. And then sometimes I go back and I think, oh right, okay, maybe that wasn't that terrible. But yeah, that's the part of the process I find the most difficult, I think, is the end bit rather than the start.
Thank you. I was struck by the artwork of the front cover. Was it exciting to be able to commission an artist to go with your work?
Well, so this is Linda's person. So Linda has a chap that does all the artwork, and it's terrible. I can't remember the guy's name off the top of my head, but he's brilliant. So he does all of the covers. I mean, sometimes people choose, artists and things, but both my covers for What the Fuck is Normal Anyway and the Department of Stuff and Things, I just gave him an idea, or sent him my mad scribbles and said, it's this, but it's this, but it's this. And I think I just said to him something along the lines of, it's the universe, but it's a department store, but it's also heaven and hell, and now in the present and everything. Like the trifecta, the Holy Ghost and God. And that's what he came up with. Like he sent me that, and then me being like totally neurodivergent picky, I was like, can we move this up here and can we change that and can we make these people da da da? So I never heard from them for about 2 weeks. And then eventually I got sent back with the changes. And I mean, it's beautiful. Like loads of people have said, the cover's amazing, which it is. Yeah, he's done a really, really great job. It is in the book who did it. That's terrible. I can't remember the guy's name, but he's fantastic.
Okay, well, thank you. And I'm sure anyone who looks at the front cover of the book will realize that it's just perfect for particularly that first poem that you read tonight. I'm going to open the floor to anyone who would like to read tonight. So, Ruth, would you like to read first?
Okay. Um, I'm somewhat daunted now, having heard Jo. I had the good fortune of having something just published in the last Poetry Scotland, so I thought I'd share that.
Excellent.
It's called Drought is a New Word Here. I never knew, Dad, how much of us is water. My childhood ways were porous. I was too young to notice you kneel down with your congregation for each drop. Too wet behind the ears to catch that each cupful was the fruit of your labours. You saw every roof that sloped a possibility, a preservation of souls through washing of hands. I never fathomed how deeply changed a woman's life could be, that pot removed from her head. Your generosity came in a hand dug well. It brought us a tank full of blessings and gifts. And Mum, she had your back covered. Dear, we've had 5 meals since Thursday. Taps plumbed that only ever ran dry. She bathed us in a bowl. Purification tablets stored by the year's worth. Water for washing vegetables returned to the garden. Muscovy ducks were the breed she kept because they don't need to swim in water. We thought it an adventure, braving leeches in the dam, just to secure a barrelful. Then tormented ourselves with nervous chills, urging you to drive through the ford. The advice that rings down the years. Don't play in dry riverbeds. Here, it's all over the news, how porous our habits are. And I'm only just learning, Dad, how much of us is water. It's kind of a biographical I'm just at that stage where I'm trying to get it all down before it's too late. But certainly my parents' story anyway.
Mm-hmm. So was that all you were wanting to read for us tonight, or did you have something else?
I've got another water-themed one.
Okay, let's
bit of
go
flash
with that.
fiction if you want something a bit different.
Yeah, that would be good. Thank you.
Okay. So again, this has just been published in on the website Fictive Dream. I picked that tip up from the the newsletter. It's very useful. It's called More Often Than Not, He Will Choose the Flowers. From the chipped enamel jug, he adds just enough cold water so his hands won't scald. Then he takes a face cloth and steeps it, leaning into the steam. He withdraws the cloth and twists it to wring out the drips. He opens the cloth and holds it to his face. He takes a breath there behind this curtain. He presses the cloth into the bowl of his eyes, feeling the grit take leave. Then brushes across his thinning hairline, through the laughter creases below his temples. Bunching the cloth now, he wipes his jaws and under his chin, finally up into the crevices of his ears. Plunging the cloth, he wills the grime into the water before scrubbing the back of his neck. The water will be stale and cold by the time he has washed his armpits, but he will make it last longer because the work to bring it this far has already been too much. Once bathed and dressed, he hangs out the cloth. Then he does something he knows many men of his generation would not countenance. He leaves this closet carrying the water. Steadily, to not create a wave in this small ocean, he bears it the length of the house and out the door that has left open for him. Outside, his wife keeps a small garden, and every evening she watches him hesitate, struck by the same dilemma. Does he gift the contents to the vegetables that supplement their table? Or does he choose the small container by the window with flowers that he knows his wife adores?
Thanks. That was lovely. Angie, I think you would like to read for us tonight as well. Would you like to go now?
Yeah, thank you. So this poem is called I'm at last ready. I'm at last ready, ready to move on. Get started with seeing the potential, the fire inside my bones that yearns for action. I'm at last happy, happy to see life is precious. Get started with caring more. Feel the love under my skin that longs to be seen. I'm at last free, free to give and take. Get started with adventures. Let my dreams be first. Throw these shackles away.
Thank you. Is there something else you would like to read tonight?
I can read another one.
Yes.
As rain falls, a new day opens the door. Calm clouds pass by. A glimpse of sunlight enlightens the sky. The streets lie empty as the houses slowly appear. Shadows of modern art. Flowers open their eyes, saying, "Good morning, world," showing off colors of hope. Birds start singing, announcing new beginnings. More clouds start dancing, allowing the ground to drink. Trees shelter homeless life. As rain falls, there is always hope for sunshine.
Oh,
Thank
thank
you.
you. Angie, you're doing a workshop for us on Monday, is that right?
Yes,
Okay, so hopefully this video will be able to go up before that so that people are reminded of the health and well-being writing workshop that you're doing. So thank you for that. Jennifer, I'm not sure if you want to read tonight or not. No? Okay. It has been a wonderful night. I've really enjoyed it. I hope you have too. Joe, would you like to remind people, because this will be going up as a video, about how they can buy the Department of Stuff and Things?
Yes, because if I don't, my publisher will give me a scalp. So you can buy the Department of Stuff and Things from Seahorse Publications. So you can find it on my social media. I am at Muckle Writing for pretty much everything: Facebook, Blue Sky, Instagram. I'm not on the Dead Bird anymore because I gave it up for obvious reasons. But yeah, I'm on most other things. So yeah, please go and buy it. I'll also be reading in Glasgow on the 10th of June at the West End Festival. So that's at 6:30 at the Oxfam Bookshop in Byres Road. So I'm reading as part of the Seahorse Showcase. So I'm sure Linda will have some bookies there for people to buy. If you're in Glasgow, come along. Or come along and buy some from me at the FWS workshop at Goma, which is on the 11th of June as well.
Okay. Well, so many possibilities,
I
and
know.
I'm sure people will be very pleased with the book once they buy it. Would you like to close for us by reading a final piece or two?
I would. Thank you to the readers. Those were beautiful poems. Lovely. Love hearing other people's stuff. It's what it's all about, sharing. Okay, so this is towards the end of the collection and it's called Matriarchy, which I'm thinking we need more and more and more. Oh, where is it? This is why I have to write the page numbers because I always think it's towards the end and it's not. 61. Oh, it is. Oh, it is at the end. Okay. So yeah, this is called Matriarchy. fa are you to dictate to our bodies, our lives, policing our moves? We shouldna say yes or nae where at our age. It's a man's world, aye, but it isna a wifey's either. Our future lies in the hands o' a victory for kindness and empathy. Fingied the rare opportunity, quines, trans and non-binary folk o' wipe the fleer wi' ony male efforts in maist things. Ladies' Bridge in London, built by wifeys during World War II, came in a 4-time and on our budget. Records of their names conveniently lost, except the money who designed it, of course. Wendy Carlos, trans wifey, trailblazer, triple Grammy winner, wheel ahead o'er time, helped make the Moog, composed cult classics, film scores for Kubrick and the like. Or tak Jasmine Paris, ultra runner, hacked 12 hours off the record o' the Montaigne spine race, whilst also pumping breast milk for our 14-month-old bairn. The previous record was held by some money. A sma selection of superstars. We'd be here a day to mention them a', yet nae a single country oota our 190, which includes Palestine, by the way, hae achieved full gender equality. Fusty, prune-coupined gapes, where I been berry bappit beaks and haunted een, telling us, fiddity, you canna do yes, you canna be at. I with fucking can. Watch us.
What a marvellous one to finish with. It's been a wonderful night. I've enjoyed listening to everybody, and thank you once again on behalf of the Fed for agreeing to do this. And we will bring this to a close now. It will be on the website at some point in the next couple of weeks. So thanks again, everyone. And do come along to some of our other in-person and Zoom events, because the Fed is very close to our hearts. So thanks, everyone.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Thanks for hosting. Bye.
Bye.